Welcome back to this week's edition of the Sixers Stock Report. Stock up, stock down, of course, on the PHLY Sixers podcast with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens, and we have to get into our NBA version. We did Sixers last week, so let's pivot ahead here with a few, about 15 games left in the season. Storylines all over the place in the NBA. Let's do the stock up, stock down, stock report presented by our good friends from
Bagels Co. Guys, they make gigantic Brooklyn-style bagels right here in Philadelphia. You can get 30 different kinds of cream cheeses with them. You can get seasonal bagels, which they make 15 to 20 different types of bagels at any given time. And on top of that, they got premium coffee at an affordable price, so you can be an everyday customer, not just someone coming in for a weekend splurge. So go ahead and check out Bagels Co. anytime, plenty of locations.
All right, let's start off here with a fun one. I think I know where we're going with this one. It might also lead to a little bit of a debate because on Monday night, Anthony Edwards had a fantastic dunk over the Utah Jazz big man, John Collins, so much so that people felt like John Collins got on the floor and started crying after he was posterized by Anthony Edwards. He got poked in his eye.
He got postered so hard that he had to leave the game.
And he had a concussion. Whatever it was, stock up, stock down. I think we know where we're going on this one. If you haven't seen it, folks, you have to go look at it. Stock way up. Anthony Edwards
through the roof.
Dumped on
Ant
John
is still
Collins.
going up.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
That for me is one of the best in-game dunks I've ever seen at any level. And it just has like all the components you need, right? Like he got up so quick that it's like, oh God, like there are a lot of moments in NBA locker rooms and media scrums, whatever, where something happens and it's like, oh man, did you see that play? And everyone will gather around and look at it. That was said last night. And so you're like preparing for like, oh, that was nice. And then it was like, you're like falling out of your seat. And the fact that his like finger got messed up, the fact that Collins got hurt and is like coming out of the game, just incredible. And I'm just glad the officials didn't try to ruin it by calling any kind of offensive foul, we've had quite a few dunks or would-be dunks ruined by terrible foul calls. So shout out to the officials for not messing that moment up.
What are your thoughts, Derek? Because sometimes they do get messed up because the officials don't understand the assignment. They have their assignment of actually calling the right play sometimes, but you just have to let those go.
Yeah, and I'm pretty close to a letter of the law kind of guy. If it's foul, it should be called.
Of course
Not
it is.
on this one. Not on this one.
Yeah, so when you also look at the other side, we briefly discussed this just in conversation because the dunk was what the dunk was with Anthony Edwards. Atlanta Hawks' Jalen Johnson also caught a body in that one too.
I think the best part of that one was actually after the game when Austin Reeves got asked about it. It was like, what was your perspective on that one? And his response was, you saw what my perspective was. So I appreciate Austin Reeves being a good I would say stock up on Austin Reeves despite the fact that he got dunked through the core of the earth for just being a good sport about it and saying, look, man, guy let his nuts hang on me on a dunk and it is what it is.
It helps that they beat the Hawks, so that
by a lot. Yeah.
Kyle, that's a different ad read. We have a different ad partner.
What, let your nuts hang? That was actually, so do you know, trivia question, you know who used to say that in the huddle prior to taking the floor?
Wow.
Michigan's Fab Five. They used to put their hands in and yell.
Oh, like the whole group. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That was like, instead of saying 1, 2, 3 team, it was 1, 2, 3, let your nuts hang. That's the most times I've ever said that in my life in a span of like 30 seconds. So trivia for some people at home.
All right, there you go. And I guess you can say that both of those gentlemen that got up, they did. And with that being said, you also have to check out Anthony Edwards' post-game interview because that was all. He never disappoints. That was phenomenal also. Stock up, stock down. We move on earlier in the week or at the end of the week, but I had to include this one because it's just amazing. We talk about the Lakers, the aura, the whole thing of who they are, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, has me going to Sacramento versus L.A., and how in the world this continues to happen. Stock up, stock down, how you look at it. Either side, how is Anthony Davis 0-10 against Domantas Sabonis? He owns him. Stock up,
honestly,
stock down. Which way would you go, Derek?
Well, I mean, when you bring it up, there's only one way you could go. That is a wild stat, though, and a
Isn't
wild
it?
fact. absolutely wild. Because it's not even like sure, the Kings are good. They're not dominant. You'd figure they'd scratch out a couple wins, even going back to the that's a wild stat.
Yeah, and here's actually do it another way. I'd say stock up in general on Sabonis. I think he's a pretty underrated player. I do think, rightfully so to some degree, people focus on his issues as a playoff guy, like what he can't do defensively, switching and playing in space and what have you. He is, in many ways, what the NBA wants from their high-level guys. Super durable, flexible, I wouldn't say star, but flexible, very, very good player who one night he's going to beat you with passing, one night he's going to beat you by scoring. He's okay deferring. He's okay taking over if he has to. And it's just always available. So, like, I think he doesn't get a ton of credit. And I think because Halliburton, frankly, because of that trade, they're going to be tied together forever. I think because Halliburton opened this year playing as well as he did, it was easy to kind of dump on the Kings. And there were people who were like, they need to trade Sabonis for, and it's like, he's part of the reason they're any good right now. Like it's a rare win-win trade where it works out for both teams. I still think Indiana gets the better part of that deal, but Sabonis is very good and very impactful for what they need him for.
And his growth as a passer over the last 3 years and as a real elite short roll threat.
It's in the genes, baby.
Yeah.
Yes,
But, I mean, that's just a real easy piece to build around on the offensive side of the floor. I feel like we have to couch that anytime we talk about him. But, yeah, he's been playing incredible basketball. To Kyle's point, probably overshadowed a little bit because of Halliburton and the leap that he made. And right now the run that the Pacers are on. But his growth that still blows my mind.
It's crazy because thinking from Oklahoma City where they felt like he couldn't play and they included him in that deal to send him to Indiana. Of course, they got Paul George, but the whole point of it was it didn't seem like he was going to be able to play with that team. Yes, Paul George from the Los Angeles Clippers. And then, he goes to Indiana, becomes an all-star, man. And there were those questions here in Philadelphia. Should the Sixers trade Ben Simmons for Domantas Sabonis and team him up with Joel Embiid and see how that goes and then flip him again? He might have been so good that you wouldn't have wanted to flip him. But, the fact that the other part for me is it's a rivalry now because people make such a big deal about it. It's Anthony Davis, who is supposed to be the superior player. He's a top 75 player, future Hall of Famer. And here it is, Domantas Sabonis owns him.
Busting his butt.
And it's a real rivalry now because of the 0-10 record. So that's what makes it fun right there for Domantas Sabonis and the Sacramento Kings. All right, stock up, stock down. I left this out the last time out, and I apologize, people. It's a couple of weeks late, but I really wanted the reaction from Kyle on this one because it's going to be funny.
Wind him up.
Let's wind him up. We don't have the video, but Detroit Pistons, man in charge, Troy Weaver, had a fan ejected from the stands who was sitting near him, telling him that he was bad at his job. So as a result, Troy Weaver threw some things back at him to the tune of...
Not literally. He said some things.
He said some things.
I want to make sure we're not saying that Troy Weaver's like throwing popcorn at some random
He said
guy.
some things. He threw some jabs at him, not physically, but in terms of, hey, if you were closer, though, I would kick your ass, that kind of thing. And then as the fan said, you just suck at your job. Got him tossed out of the game. The Detroit Pistons have already been eliminated from the playoffs. We knew that. They stink. He might not have a job at the end of the season, but he got a fan ejected. So I assume we're going to stock down. Or is it stock up because he stood up for himself? Or the fan gets...
Stock up for the fan.
Yeah, sorry, I missed my cue.
You're sideways. What are you doing?
That's how bad it is.
Oh, my
Troy
God.
Weaver.
You're running the board like Troy Weaver over there.
You're lucky I don't beat your ass.
That's what he said.
So here's what I would say.
Man.
The only out I will give Troy Weaver is that I have only seen the video that is available to the public. We have I don't have any idea the full body of what was said.
Though.
We never know if certain things are said crossing the line, whatever it is. But if all it was a fan basically saying, you suck, you got to just eat that, dude.
Yes.
Your team blows. And it's almost entirely because of decisions that you made, whether it's draft picks, whether it's the free agents, whether it's the trades, whether it's the most expensive coach in the NBA who has actively sabotaged the team at times this year. Sabotage might be one of the most used words on this podcast, by the way, for
multiple headlines.
Multiple
certainly
reasons.
Makes a lot of appearances in the show.
But I'm sorry, like if that'd be like if Sam Hinkie, when he was running the process Sixers, and granted, they were actually like, I won't say deliberately trying to lose, but they weren't actively trying to win.
Yes.
I feel like if Sam Hinkie sat in the stands during a game and a fan who paid money to be there was like, "This sucks, you suck," and Sam stood up and was like, "Hey, security, you got to get that guy." Like, that's just, you can't do that, bro. That's just lame above all else. But also, you have to have the self-awareness that you need to show some grace to the people who are still going to games. Like, whatever reason they're going to games for, they're giving your franchise money to go watch and support your team. And so if they want to voice their displeasure, as long as they're not making it about things that are not the job, if it turns into like a personal character and whatever kind of thing, that's different. All we've seen is a guy saying, "You suck at your job," and Troy Weaver apparently doesn't want to hear that. Sorry, buddy, you have sucked at your job. So stock down for you. Stock up for the guy in the Red Wings jacket.
And Kyle's bringing up the getting him ejected. You also can't tell him that you're lucky I don't beat your ass. You
like,
cannot tell a fan that. Like, I don't, unless he was physically, confronting you and threatening you. You cannot throw that back at him. I'm surprised this isn't a bigger story.
Hey, Detroit fan, you get a bagel. Bagels Co.
Yeah.
We got you covered. We'll send you the bagel.
I'll buy you a whole tub of cream cheese if I ever meet that guy.
No doubt about it.
I sincerely promise.
Just don't throw it at Troy Weaver. That's all. All right, our final one here. I'm going to go the college route because it's time for the tournament time, and it's always a fun time, except over the years it has gone down. So the fandom for you as basketball fans, you're a big Fab Five fan. I know this of you. I know you're a big college basketball fan. Same for me. And it has changed, though. Do you still get excited? Is it stock up, stock down for the tournament? Because it's not the same. And a lot of people are more interested in the women's side than they are the men. So stock up, stock down.
Caitlin Clark effect.
For the college basketball tournament. There. So where are we going here?
It's probably down. Is this the right way? Is that the right?
Yes.
You got it.
Nailed it.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, but so it's down a little bit for me because for a long time I was very entrenched in scouting and watching it from that perspective. So I spent an inordinate amount of time watching college basketball. And at that point, I'm so invested in it that you have to watch the end of it anyway, not only for scouting, but you're way more invested in the teams than you otherwise would be. But I think, certainly it's not what it was in the 90s and early 2000s when players stayed there longer. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but it has an impact on the tournament. And I just feel like it hasn't really recovered since COVID in that weird year anyway. I think that had a little impact on the momentum as well. It's down, but it's still a great event. Like once they start playing, once the stakes get raised, once you get a couple of great finishes, there will be a lot of excitement for it. So it's stocked down, but it's not, I don't want to make too big of a thing of it.
Yeah. So for me, it's down, and it's more a reflection of my life's work is the NBA. So I only have so much time to dedicate to watching basketball beyond the NBA. I want to be as informed as possible about what's going on at the pro level. And to a degree, you have to follow college for that, for the scouting, the draft, all that. But when I was a kid, college basketball was huge. Like I think I've said this to you guys before. I was a UNC fan growing up, mostly because I couldn't stand Duke and they were the direct rival, but also because they had guys like Vince Carter and they had Rasheed Wallace, Philly guy. They had Ed Cota was a point guard I loved. And then,
New York.
Dude, I loved Ed Cota.
Yeah.
He's an awesome college player.
Talk about throwing the lob.
And then you get to, the great teams in 05 when it's Ray Felton and Sean May and those guys. And then 09 when it's Danny Green and Hansbrough and all them, and they just blew the doors off everybody. And part of the value of college basketball at the time, to Derek's point, was you become familiar with these guys. The same way that part of the joy of pro sports is watching a team grow from these guys get drafted or signed early, and they go from 20, 21-year-old kids, 22-year-old kids into 28, 30-year-old men who grow together as a team and then achieve something. So when these guys win national titles now, it's still special, but a lot of these guys are only there a year or two. You barely know them, then they're out the door, and it's like, there's not as much of that personal connection. And I'm like, look, I'm happy for these guys, all the changes that have been made. I'm glad NIL is here, so players are making money, doing whatever. I'm glad the one and done path is there. Frankly, I would love for them to open up the high school path again, although that doesn't seem like that's happening, even though they talk about it every couple years or so. But yeah, my college basketball fandom has definitely dropped. I say all that, and there's very few sporting experiences better than that opening weekend of the tournament, going to a bar with some friends, filling out a bracket, even if you know nothing, and just watching to see the chaos happen. It still is hard to beat in sports.
Oh, no. Those people who know nothing beat the sickos every time.
100%.
Because you overthink it.
The lady in your office pool who just picks the better mascot, or
team
this
colors.
Sounds better, or team colors, whatever it is.
Yeah, and tough part for me, though, and keep it local, no Big Five teams, no City Six teams. That's bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
I appreciate you for saying City Six. As a Drexel alum, I appreciate you.
Well, I always do. And I always want to make sure, and I'm talking about on the men's side, is it Drexel or the side? I think it's Drexel women's got in. But for the men's side to have none, that's not great, because that's a big deal, of course, not only here, but people outside of the country know what the Big Five. They may not know what the City Six is, but they know who Drexel is, but they know what the Big Five is and what it means to everybody here, whether you attended the school or not. It was always great basketball to have the Temple teams playing against the Fab Five when it was Aaron McKee and Eddie Jones, Rick Brunson playing against the Fab Five then, or Len Greer and his Temple team going at it, or you look at Jerome Allen and Matt Maloney making noise with Penn, or the Southwest Philly Villanova Ty Garland. Well, I didn't want to talk about 2016 with my friend right here next to me. Marcus Pace hits that shot. I'm like, oh shoot! And then
I think I was phased out of college fandom at that point.
All right, good. I wasn't.
That was an incredible game. That's why you watch.
That's why you love
March Madness, right?
Yeah.
And to the Temple point, like, I have no connection through family, or I didn't go there or anything like that. But when John Chaney was coaching Temple,
the best,
you felt like that was they're such a representative of the city, right? That's a hardworking, defense first, blue collar team always. The cast changed every year or every 4 years, I guess, because it was much more of like a 4-year program. Guys are in it to win it that way. And so that was like, you turn on Temple, whether it's in October or it's in March, and you know what you're getting. You are getting a team that is going to be a pain in the butt to play for all 40 minutes. And so losing him specifically, I think, was part of the decline of the Big Five and the City Six. And then certainly Villanova, once Jay Wright left, now they've gone from, they were a legitimate national power, consistent,
blue blood,
consistent top 5 team, number 1 preseason team, multiple time national champion, and now they're not even making the tournament. So when there's no local angle, it's definitely harder for me and a lot of other people to get into it.
Yeah, we can't forget about Jameer's run with Delonte.
Hey, my neighbor
Martelli
played on that team. Pat Carroll is the one who.
Yeah. He can shoot. He could shoot.
I really regret that they couldn't win that year.
Oh, man. Remember that?
Pat's a great dude. All those guys are Jameer.
Elite 8.
It's awesome. Yeah, John Lucas, man, that damn shot.
I didn't think he was going to make it. I mean, they were all playing great, and then when Jameer had that pull up, I thought that was going in.
Because that was that year for him. He was nails in any type of crunch time, end of game, got to get a bucket situation. He was amazing.
Yeah, and there's so many people who make their name and all of that. We saw Hakeem Warwick at the game on Monday here, and he had the block against Kansas to seal the game after Carmelo Anthony doing all his offensive stuff. Everybody else chipping in. Hakeem Warwick, a local guy, getting the block against Kansas.
Maybe I'm just getting old, man. Like I'm sure there are a lot of kids now who are like, man, what a play, and they're creating memories forever.
But hey, that's our edition of Sixers Stock Report, Stock Up, Stock Down, presented by our good friends from
Bagels Co. Guys, if you want to know more and find some locations so you can get all the different types of bagels, cream cheeses, and that premium coffee, go to www.thebagelsandco.com/store-locator to find the closest Bagels Co. near you.
We'll be back next week with another edition of the Sixers Stock Report, Stock Down, presented by Bagels Co.
city like the mayor.